is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is a band called In Theory. The name of that song was She's Gone. It is Mike Mostert and the Go-Go Tuner family that the album is on. And I'm going to get some clarity myself because I'm not exactly sure how this all works. But on the line right now, we have two members of In Theory. We have Mike and we have the vocalist of the band, Tony Covino. Guys, how's it going?
It's going. We're doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Good. It's real good.
I'm good, Chris.
Well, guys, I have to be honest. I read all the press. I listened to the release that's out there on Google Play, and I'm as confused as I was the first time I saw you guys' name as far as if In Theory is a band and the Go-Go Tuner family is like a label, or if the Go-Go Tuner family is the band and there's like sub pieces of the band that play together. So let's start there with trying to figure out exactly what it is that you guys are doing.
I will shed a light on the clarity, hopefully.
Okay.
For you. So there is the Go-Go Tuner family record. I own a company called Go-Go Tuners, and I started creating a collaboration record with the high-profile artists on my roster, and we're doing all these different genres. But within the record, a real band emerged with Tony, and of course, we need some. When I was doing this record, I also want to have some hard rock tracks, metal tracks. And for me, it was the obvious choice to bring Tony back in, because Tony and I were signed to EMI back, in the 90s, with their official rock helmets back in the day. And so when I started the Go-Go Tuner family record, I wanted to have 2 songs from Tony and I, featuring the hard rock, metal portion of the record. And then from that, it actually sort of became a real band within the record. So while the other songs are a collaborative effort, it's not really a band, but In Theory became a band because of the record. And that's the debut of the band In Theory is on the Go-Go Tuner family record.
Okay. So then as In Theory started, gelling as a band, did you start to write apart from the collaborative songs that you already had, or were these the 2 songs that I've heard, were they written as part of the collaboration but kind of gobbled up for In Theory?
No, not really. The way that we wrote the 2 In Theory songs was really the same process Tony and I have always written, and except that obviously technology is a little bit different. We were trying to write this time via cell phone and Skype, and the technology was not in our favor. But we were just going back and forth, giving each other ideas, and then we brought those ideas to rehearsals. We pretty much formulated and structured several songs and brought it to the guys, and then we cut it as a band.
Okay.
So that's how that came out. It wasn't really a collaboration of, let me get this bass player from this one, this drummer from. It wasn't that. It was, here's the 2 songs that we're going to do with the band. Okay.
So now how old, I guess, is In Theory as a band? Have you played shows yet? Or, I mean, obviously the pandemic probably hurts with that, but have you been able to play shows or play out yet as In Theory?
No, the pandemic put the whammy on it, because out of the record, the Go-Go record, the In Theory is really what was taking off and being played on the radio stations and classic rock stations. It's really resonated with it, and we were getting invited to do many festivals. We were supposed to be doing the festivals starting this year, but
right.
It just didn't happen. And so hopefully once things clear up, then we're going to try to get back into that same circuit, to be introduced to the rock world in the festival world.
Absolutely.
We're taking a little bit of a different route. We're fortunate that we have a lot of good friends and family in the music industry and other bands, and for them to also take us under their wing, for these types of festivals, I think is a really cool thing. And then on top of that, Tony and I already started writing the new In Theory record.
Okay.
And that's the silver lining of it was silver lining, but not silver lining of the pandemic. So originally, Tony and I were going to try to do this by mid-April. We were going to try to do this, but obviously, for him to come down to Muscle Shoals to record wasn't gonna happen. But on the other hand, it actually made us better writers. So, for instance, I have about 70, 80 pages of notes of songs and recordings of songs, and Tony as well. So it really was honing our craft to dig deeper as better songwriters. And, and I played little, snippets for other, DJs and getting feedback. And, people are really comparing, like, there's definitely been an evolution from what you've heard from In Theory, where it's sort of like if you take early Zeppelin 1 or 2 and add a swampiness. It's not a Southern rock thing. It's not a blues thing. But the best way to describe it, there's a swampy feel to it, meets Zeppelin with the modern day production.
Sure.
And the reaction, and people are just freaking out on what they're hearing. So we're really just so excited to do it. And in fact, I just got back from LA, and we have Stevie Wonder's choir as doing some of the backups for one song. It's part of one of the real swampy songs. So yeah, we're really excited about the new stuff.
So in theory, so to speak, you're literally becoming a band in public instead of in a back, in a jam room somewhere figuring out what you are. You're very much developing, in the public eye.
Oh yeah, and it's actually, you know what, you're 100% right, because how we, I have to say, how we came up with this sound, so to speak, and it really honestly wasn't a conscious effort. It was like, okay, let's try to sound like, swampy, or let's sound like this. It was, part of it too is, the theory of Muscle Shoals and the river and what inspires people to feel music. I'm not sure if you know the theories of Muscle Shoals and Swampers and all that. I'm not sure. Do you? Or
no, I don't.
Okay. If you ever get a chance, if you're a music fan and a history fan, it's a great documentary to watch.
Okay.
But for example, Joe Rogan interviewed Steven Tyler about this place, and and even Steven Tyler coming to the same studios that I took Tony to, he broke down crying. He's like, "Wow, this is where Aretha Franklin sang. This is where Etta James sang. This is where the list goes on and on. It's probably been about 2 billion records sold out of this place, and it's an economically depressed little area, but they've created so many legendary records from the mid '60s and continuing. And there's just something that makes you play music that you never thought was inside you. And I think that's what's really coming out of Tony and myself, especially as we're writing and evolving this new In Theory. And like you're saying, we're evolving in public. Tony and I actually redid a couple of songs from the record, from the In Theory's song from the Go-Go record, and our debut was on Fox TV in front of 20 million or 30 million people doing an acoustic version. That's a variation of what this new record's going to be, where it's a little bit swampy. Tony's doing some magic vocals that he does, and Tony's just such an amazing singer. So you're right. So people are getting to see the evolution in person and in the millions, which is kind of it's scary, but it's such a cool experience on the other hand.
What comes in, and I'll throw this one to Tony only because I feel like he's being left out, but both of you can probably answer this.
Well, he's just a singer. He's just a singer. So,
he gets enough attention, right?
That's right.
That's what it is.
Now, when you write music and you develop it so much from an atmosphere, that's what I'm taking away from what you're saying, is that the creative process is coming a lot from the atmosphere that you're putting yourself in to write it. What comes out more that way, the music or the lyrics, and specifically the topical material that you'll write about?
Well, I think for me, it's everything is emotion first. So you get a certain feel a certain vibe. And like a lot of times when I write, like I'll just, I call it mush mouth. I'll know I'll know the melody, and I'll feel the vibe of the song, but I don't necessarily have all the lyrics yet.
Okay.
But the lyrics come from the emotion of what I'm feeling. So it's emotion first, and then the lyrical content will then follow the emotion. So it's kind of hand in hand.
Okay. Excellent. And how about you, Mike, as far as the musical side goes? Do you feel like a lot of it comes from the vibe that you're in, or do you feel like you already have that vibe kind of in you, and this is just an outlet?
That's a really good question. I don't know what's like the chicken and the egg. I mean, honestly, since I'm actually here, and it is like sort of like a vortex of music. I'm not trying to sound bluesy, or I'm trying to sound swampy or anything specific. I'm just really just writing what's coming to me. Okay. So it's, that's the best way of describing it. I'm just writing, and it's not like I said, it's not a conscious sound I'm looking for. It's just when it's right, it's right. I'm like, cool, I'll keep that idea and then move on to the next idea. Sure. But I definitely think environment plays a big part of it, because I'm surrounded by, it's the legendary R&B place, historic, R&B place. Plus, this is a place where everybody always equates, Memphis and other areas, the Delta blues, but actually the father of the blues is here. Okay. And, W.C. Handy is the one who actually formatted the 145 blues. And so I'm surrounded by, two generations above me that, as far as blues and R&B, like the real deal guys that were there from the beginning who actually created that sound. And I think just being around them, you're absorbing it, whether subconsciously or consciously.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Do you think that maybe the bluesier side of the music comes from you, Mike, while maybe the more metallic side comes from the New Yorker in Tony?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, because you have to remember too, I'm a New Yorker first.
Oh, okay.
And I still have a place, and I'm, and I have a place in California. So New York first, and the last 20 years, I'm in California. So I have a small place in California, but really my main residence is in Muscle Shoals. So, no, I think I started off more as a hard rock guy, but I think just through time and interest, even before coming here, I've always had an interest in many genres, whether it's, blues or jazz or funk. And, but I think now I'm able to articulate that from an instrument standpoint and put that in my writing, I guess is what's happening.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, let's talk about the single, guys. The single that we're actually promoting is "Can't Find My Way." It's a very cool track. Seemingly seems to be getting a lot of attention in a time when rock music in general doesn't seem to get a lot of attention. So, talk a little bit about creating this song and how quickly people have gravitated to it.
Tony? We'll let the singer speak.
Okay. I'm always afraid of stepping on people, during a call. So, Can't Find My Way is basically came together. I mean, we sort of had the idea, and then when we all got together to rehearse it live as a band, like we talked about before, the vibe was born. But the basic part of the song is someone basically who's lost their way, that's looking for things, like you missed opportunities or things that you thought you'd become. And now you're at this point where you're like, I can't find my way. Like, why did I end up here when I had all these other things that I wanted to accomplish? And that's basically what the song says. And, you sort of take things from my personal experience, and, there's things that you've done, regrets you might have had, things kind of, didn't go your way. And and then you look back on it, and basically that's the concept of can't find my way. I'm looking not for the way back, but I'm looking for a way to get these things back on track.
Sure. And Mike, with the song, since it seems like you probably deal with a little bit more of the business piece of it, how has it been shopping it out there to radio and getting it out there to the appropriate avenues?
I wouldn't say it's been easy is not the right word. I wasn't expecting such a strong response. I didn't know what response to expect. Maybe that's a better way of wording it.
Sure.
Because I thought this was the first time I said, how about Tony and I write a hard rock song in 2020? And this is this is how we write. This is what we feel. And we love it, but again, you never know how your audience or the radio will gravitate towards it. And thankful, guys like yourself and many stations and TV have just really, there's something that's resonating to the end user, the end listener and the fans and the disc jockeys. So it's been, I wouldn't say easy is not the right word, but
sure.
Since the response has been so strong, it's just been like a snowball.
Sure.
So from a business standpoint, it's been, it's overwhelmingly, something unexpected, of this magnitude. I was hoping that people would like it, but they seem to really love it.
Absolutely. Now, let me devil's advocate it a little bit, just because of the way the world is, and you guys both know this. Music right now, it's a great time for music. It's a terrible time for musical artists, because music has become so disposable to so many people. They like a song, and they might really like a song this week, and then they don't even remember it the next week, because of digital and everything else. How does a brand new band like In Theory that is getting some attention, how do you keep that attention without it flashing and being gone?
Is that for me or for Tony? Or you want
pick either one?
Yeah, for me, well, it's two-sided. It's almost like me and Mike always talk about. It's sort of like new school, old school, right? So, we're sort of like old school because, we're getting play on FM stations,
sure.
Right? So that's like an old school concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And shows like yourself that, support us, which we really appreciate. And the other part of the old school, which we haven't been able to do yet, out of our controls, getting out there in front of people and playing live.
Right.
There's a lot of bands, a lot of rock bands need to be in front of people and build their credibility and build their chops, live. So that's the old school part. And the new school part is obviously social media, doing snippets, doing videos, which I'll be honest, I suck at. I'm not good at that part. I'm good at, I want to sing and I want to go and play, and I like to rehearse. I like to be on stage. That's, and that's like I'm old school that way.
Right.
But we also realize that social media, is also very important. So until we can get on that stage, we reach out to people like you with the show, and we appreciate the attention and the airplay. We really do. And also on the social media, that's all we can do right now. And then in the meantime, we're writing and especially me as a singer, I put a lot of that angst into how I sing. There's a lot of things that I'm pissed off. We were supposed to be playing and doing all these cool things. And that, I use that energy, to sing the new stuff. I put that out there that way.
Sure.
But, so it's really old school, new school. There's a lot of bands out there right now doing that. One band that I look up to is Rival Sons. I love
sure.
Jay Buchanan as a vocalist. He's amazing. And they play. They were constantly playing, and they built their reputation the old school way, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get a chance to get out in front of people and do it that way.
You know, it's a weird thing with the pandemic, and Lord knows I'm not going to be one to try and say, well, the pandemic's good for bands, right? Because I know it's not. But for a newer band like yours, it's almost more helpful that people, because they've been locked in, if they hear something they like, they might listen to it 5, 10, 20 times instead of moving on to the video of the Motley Crue concert from Camden last week or whatever, you know?
Right. Yeah.
We have a captive audience.
Yeah, exactly. Which is probably the only time, maybe in musical history, that new bands have had that.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool. Well, guys, the band is called In Theory. Whoever knows it better, why don't you give the plugs on where people can go to keep up with you guys and see what you're doing and socials and all that stuff?
Yeah, we have different socials, so you can go to the Go-Go Tuner page on Instagram and on Facebook. There's always a lot of things that are going on with In Theory and with the record as a whole. And then In Theory also has a page on Facebook.
Okay.
And then also the Go-Go Tuner website. So between all four, everybody's kept abreast of what's going on, with In Theory.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, guys, since we talked about it a bunch, why don't we go ahead and play Can't Find My Way? How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds beautiful. Crank it up.
Crank it.
All right, well, here it is. It is In Theory with Can't Find My Way right here on your Classic Metal Show.